Hey, we're cooking with gas here on the Jewcast.
Okay, careful using a phrase like that.
This trial is a travesty. It's a travesty of a mockery, of a sham, of a mockery, of a travesty, of two mockeries of a sham.
Tradition!
Oh, shut up, Carl! Shut your goddamn Jew mouth! You people are why there's war in the Middle East!
Gekackt von Jan.
Nebbig.
Verpoepoepoe.
Vermischt.
Verkackt.
Vertutzt.
Verstonken.
Farted.
Exactly.
You're what Grammy Hall would call a real Jew.
Yay! Episode 98 of American Jew coming at you.
98.
I know
That's a lot of Jew, by the way. 98 episodes.
You know, it's exciting. We're getting close to that 100 mark. We're getting there. It's coming.
We're almost there.
Oh boy. Well, we've had a lot. This week has felt like I can't believe that we're only 2 weeks into the new year. It feels like a lot longer than that already.
Yeah. It's not barely, right?
I feel like we've had like a month, at least a month's worth of shit just this week.
I mean, it's been a crazy 2 weeks for sure. Everything that's been happening in the country, definitely. With our lame duck president, who we have never been supporters of on this podcast or personally. And he's just shown more why he isn't fit to be president, why he should never have been president, and also just the kind of people that he empowers. And, he has a lot of Jewish supporters, and it just boggles my mind because personally, I'm never taking the side with people that are white supremacists or people obsessed with QAnon, whose whole conspiracy theories is shrouded in anti-Semitism. It's absolutely insane. I mean, with what happened at the Capitol building last week was just insane. And the fact that there was so much anti-Semitic sentiment going on while this is happening, and the people that wanted to get involved with this and the people that want to revolt against the election are the same people that kind of propagate these anti-Semitic ideals and spread anti-Semitism.
It's really troubling. It seems like every hour with new information that comes out, it's more troubling and more scary. I mean, there's not a lot of good news that we found this week. I feel like the only good news is that some of these anti-Semites have actually been arrested, like the guy with the Camp Auschwitz sweater. He's been arrested, and the place that he bought the sweater apparently no longer sells those.
That's good. I definitely think that's something that should have been taken down. Not really something you want to buy as a gift for somebody. Yeah. Hey, the perfect gift for the Jew hater you love.
I feel like he would fit much better in a Camp Guantanamo sweater. Hey-yo.
Right. Well, he got arrested, so we definitely know he's going to be part of some white supremacist prison gang for sure. He'll probably be all the rage with like, "Hey, you're the celebrity that wore this dumb Camp Auschwitz T-shirt." I mean, what a fucking idiot. By the way, just to mention, a Jewish cemetery right outside of Auschwitz was vandalized this week. Unfortunately, very sad. We don't need to get super into that. Yeah. But just how Auschwitz was a real place. A lot of Jews were killed there. It's a huge concentration camp. I've been there personally when I went on the March to Living. It's not something to be taken lightly. It's not something that you should be having fun fashion shirts that you got at Spencer's Gifts or something for anti-Semites. It's just fucking ridiculous. I'm glad that guy got arrested. He got way too much attention. That's how crazy it is with anti-Semitism. You could just wear stupid Camp Auschwitz t-shirts and all of a sudden you're like a focal point for both anti-Semites and people that are like, holy shit, look at all these anti-Semites that are here.
Yeah, the guy wearing the t-shirt that said 6 million wasn't enough. Like, you're right. They are.
It's absolutely insane that anyone is still, spreading these lies about widespread voter fraud, which there's absolutely no fucking proof for. It is just ridiculous already. If there were, I want to see it. If Biden stole the election, I want to know, because that's not the America I want to live in. But I don't want to live in an America where some asshole just spreads a bunch of fucking lies and a bunch of idiots believe him. And there are so many Jews, Hasidic, Orthodox, that support Trump and are supporting these people. They're empowering these people, and they don't see anything wrong. And they have a big problem with the whole liberal agenda. Meanwhile, they'd rather stand side by side with people whose agenda is nothing but Jew hate.
It's really crazy. I mean, and there are Jews even on the Trump side. Like, I read a thing about this kid, Aaron Mostovsky, whose father
right.
is
his father's a judge, a Jewish
father's
judge.
a judge in New York.
He was one of the rioters at the Capitol building.
Yeah.
Isn't that crazy? This Jewish guy is rioting next to some guy that has a Camp Auschwitz t-shirt, and they're bonding together over some lies that aren't real, and just totally looking past the point that, like, if this guy had his way, if Camp Auschwitz had this way, this fucking Jewish judge wouldn't be rioting. He'd be fucking dead.
And you know what's even more troubling is that there are people on the right. There are political pundits, Republican, talking points that try to paint the censorship of the people that are, decrying the things that they're saying as their own Holocaust. Like this woman, Jeanine Pirro, on Fox News, who said that because they took down Parler and all these other, they've banned a whole bunch of these politicians from Twitter and Facebook. She likened it to Kristallnacht.
This is such fucking bullshit, and I don't like it. Hawley and Ted Cruz said that Biden was comparing them to Nazis when Biden said that they're all part of the big lie, because the big lie was a thing amongst the Hitler and the Nazis. But no, Biden was just saying they are part of a big lie, which is this dumb fucking voter fraud bullshit that they're perpetrating. And you know what? No, I'm sorry. They're nothing like the Nazis. I'm so sick of hearing this fucking bullshit. Oh, they took our free speech, blah, 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 blah. First of all, it's not free speech to yell fire at a fucking crowded movie theater. And that's basically what Trump and his fucking people are doing. And second of all, the lies that were spread by the Nazi Party about the Jews are a lot more similar to the lies being spread by fucking Donald Trump and a lot of his fucking followers. That's the reality. They're the Nazi Party, if anything. I know it's crazy. They want to say, oh, the Democrats are the Nazis, the Democrats are the racists, the Democrats are the bigots. It is absolutely insane. While they're there wearing Camp Auschwitz or 6 million wasn't enough, or spreading this fucking protocols of Zion bullshit, and it's insane. It's absolutely insanity.
It really is. I mean, they've gone out of their way to paint anybody that is anti-Zionist, that is at all pro-Palestinian people or rights, as anti-Semitic and anti-Israel.
Right. We've talked about this throughout the podcast. It's been almost the theme of our podcast. We don't agree with that at all. We're hoping that these beliefs, these ideas, they stop. We think they're old-fashioned. They're not in touch with the reality of the world right now. And no, you could be against the actions of Israel. You could be for a Palestinian state. It doesn't mean you hate all Jews. You're not anti-Semitic. And Jordan, though, to be honest, the fucking anti-Semites that fucking are part of this whole Trump movement, Trumpsters, QAnon, they don't give a fuck about Israel. They don't give a shit about Palestine. They just hate fucking Jews because they're different. They believe in that we're part of the cabal. We want to take over the world. We're greedy. We're taking their jobs. We're horrible people. They just believe all the fucking bullshit. And it's crazy to me that, I was talking to you about the Hasidic show that I did, and they got all mad at me when I said something anti-Trump. And it's like, fuck you. Why don't you get mad at the guy who shot up the synagogue, who said he did it because of things that Trump said? Why don't you get mad at your fellow fucking Trump supporters who are out there just fucking spreading hatred? And if they have their way, if they storm the Capitol, if on the 19th and the 20th, all these other horrible things that they have planned because they can't accept the reality that they lost, and because they are so easily misled by a fucking reality star who has done nothing but lie and been proven to be a liar over and fucking over again, and they're going to be like, they want to be with those people. I mean, they're going to get what they have coming. When those people have control of the world, if that horrible time ever happens, when in some way they get control, they're going to get rid of the Jews. They're going to round up the fucking Jews, okay? They're not going to have anything to do with Jews. And then you could be like, oh, yeah, I'm so glad I supported this guy. It's like, fuck you to all those people. And I'm sorry, because my mom might listen, and she likes Trump for some reason that I can understand. It's a huge source of contention. We're always fighting about it, but it's so much more upsetting that they have this idea that liberals are so bad, they want to take over the world in such a way that's going to make things so horrible that they'd rather side with the people that are just spreading hatred.
It's really insane. I mean, this has been a tough week for a lot of people. I think, I would imagine that any podcast that deals directly with world events is venting a bit this week. A lot of anger on every side about this week. And I feel like, we've lost sight of a lot of reasons why we care about some of this stuff. We're so focused on pointing fingers at the bad guys. I feel like it's just a tough time for humanity that we're living through right now. And it certainly doesn't help. I think, one of the things that we talk about a lot is how sometimes, there are Jews who jump on the, calling things anti-Semitic, really quickly. I think it's really disturbing to see that both sides really use the Holocaust and use the Nazi moniker for anything that they disagree with. Like both sides really do it to an extreme where the meaning of the Holocaust has lost a lot of of the gravitas that we mean to have people understand when we do talk about that, because it's been used so often. I think
I understand it. Comparing it to just anything kind of does take a little bit away, but it was such a horrible thing, the Holocaust. The Nazis were such an evil force. It's hard not to compare things, but things don't need to be compared to them all the time. Things are bad enough as they are, and there's a new thing that's horrible. We don't need to compare it to something else. And, I've talked about this before. I've talked about it in my act, how it's almost like if Hitler wanted to just accomplish one thing, to be the thing that everybody compared evil to for the rest of his fucking life, he succeeded. Anytime anything comes up as bad, Hitler gets brought up. Hitler will live on forever because of his evilness, and that is almost like a victory for him, being like a part of history of the world, and it's sick and it's horrible. Everything doesn't have to be compared to the Nazis. First of all, when the Republicans do it, it is just fucking bullshit propaganda, and it is so upsetting because it is just totally based on nothing that's real. It's just totally there to make someone else look bad, to try to take away something's importance, something's meaning, something's merit, and it's like calling a woman a bitch. It's like calling a fucking woman a bitch for no reason, all right? Just being like, you're a bitch because you don't want to talk to me at a bar. That's what I feel like it is. If a guy goes up to a girl at a bar and says, hey, let me buy a drink, she's like, I'm not really interested. And he goes, you're a fucking bitch. That's what Republicans are like when they're like, oh, it's a Nazi. You're a Nazi. That's a Nazi. That's what they're fucking like, in my opinion.
You know what?
Hey, I'm so heated today, Jordan.
You're fired up, buddy.
When we started the podcast, I was like tired. I was about to fall asleep before this. You were texting me. I'm like, I just need to close my eyes for 5 minutes. I'll talk to you 10 minutes. And then we got on. We started talking about all this. And I'm like, these fucking assholes need to stop. It's enough. I'm sick of this. It's like, I don't like this. Like, the thing that makes me identify most about being a Jew and being proud to be a Jew is the hate that Jews get. And to see like so many Jews taking the side of the haters, the Jewish haters, it's just mind-boggling to me. To me, they are like the fucking Jews that helped the Nazis in the beginning of the Holocaust, and were the ones that got the other Jews rounded up, or they helped capture them, and they thought life would go easier on them because they were helping the Nazis, and like it did. That's not what happened. All the Jews, they don't give a fuck. It's like we talk about this too. People want to say, oh, well, I'm only partially Jewish, or only my dad's Jewish, or I don't do it, so I'm not that Jewish. But hey, if there was another Holocaust, you'd be a fucking Jew. And it's the same thing with these fucking Jew haters. They don't care if you like Trump, if you don't like Trump, you're a fucking Jew at the end of the day.
I read a funny analogy the other day about how the new Nazis are the American Republicans who every time Trump tweeted something that was reprehensible and they were asked about it, they were like, I did not see that. I'm one of the Nazis.
Hey!
That's the joke.
Oh, how long have you been keeping that in your podcast?
Oh, boy. It took me a long time to find a segue into that one that was not going to sound like it was forced. But
you got it now. Well, if we do, I don't think we have a lot of listeners that are, very pro-Trump. It seems like the people more agree with our philosophies and political ideology. But if you're out there, just take a second to really think about who you're sharing your beliefs with, who you're sharing the things that matter to you and why they matter to you. And at the end of the day, whose side do you really want to be on?
And I'll just say this, most of the stuff that I read in the news, I think the closest I'll ever get to really understand, really enjoying any sort of German perspective is my enjoyment of Schadenfreude.
Oh, yeah. Seeing
these Nazi assholes being locked up, like that's, hearing about the guy that tased himself in the balls until he had a heart attack. There are articles about that now. People have.
Jordan's been heavily researching this over the last week.
I'm just saying that is.
Okay. Hey, all right. Hey, these guys are fucking idiots. I do think they should be locked up. And
the number of these guys, that live streamed themselves committing felonies it is almost comical how many of them posted videos and pictures of themselves breaking the law. It's like, okay, whoopsie.
They're not the brightest people in the world.
Whoopsie.
My friend was telling me about a video he saw where he goes, Donald J. Trump is a genius. That's what the J stands for, genius. And that basically sums up like a large majority of Trump supporters.
That does sum a lot of it up.
Hopefully more people won't die, won't get hurt. It's sickening, especially, Black Lives Matter protests. You guys did it. Why can't we? 19 people were killed, sadly, over the 4 months of Black Lives Matter. 5 people died in like 3 hours of this fucking thing at the Capitol building. It's a false equivalency to say they're anything like each other. One was based on an eternity of systematic racism, of police brutality that has been videoed and shown and real, and the other thing's based on some fucking lies some guy said. So let's just be careful with our comparisons. But we hope we have a better week.
Yeah,
hopefully next week we'll have happier things to talk about.
Well, I have I have one piece of to switch gears for a second. One piece of news that I guess I'm not sure how I feel about this yet myself, but it is my birthday this weekend.
Hey,
who knows if it's going to be good?
I
don't know if it's good news or bad news. But
Sameach. No, Yom Huledet Sameach.
I'm just saying
something Sameach.
It's going to be a Sameach. I tell you that much. It's going to be something. Yeah, I'm getting 1 year older. So, I guess we get to celebrate that I'm not dead yet. But
definitely, that's good. You didn't die of COVID or of an anti-Semitic attack.
Right. I've often said getting, it's as much as it sucks to get older, it is better than the alternative.
It definitely is. Well, hey, very happy birthday to Jordan. If you want to get him a birthday present, you should subscribe to our Patreon.
That's exactly what
What a segue. Sorry, I co-opted your birthday gift, Jordan. But anyways, we do have the Patreon. We have some great fucking content on there. You can subscribe for as little as $5 a month. Do it.
We got a lot of content up there, and we got more coming at you. We got a great interview today, as it turns out.
I'm so excited. We got Valerie Scott on the show. She's a manager at the Comedy Cellar. She used to work at the Laugh Lounge. She's a part of the comedy community. She's a friend. And she's an honorary Jew, which we're going to get into on the interview. So we're super excited to bring Val on the show.
Oh, boy.
All right, we're super excited to have Valerie Scott on the show. I just call her Val. Val, thanks for coming on.
Thank you.
I was hanging out with Val a couple weeks ago, and she was telling me all about how she was an honorary Jew. And I was like, we got to get you on the show, Val. I've known Val for so long. You're like one of the people I think I've known longest in comedy. Because you used to work at the Laugh Lounge, and when I first started, they were very good to me. I used to perform there all the time, host a lot of their weekday shows.
I'll just say this, by the way, being on this show is what makes you an official honorary Jew.
Okay, now you've been christened the Jew.
Yeah.
If we were doing this live, we would squirt some Manischewitz at you or something.
Yeah.
A baptism via Manischewitz. Is that the Our crackers are just really bigger because they're the whole matzah. Yeah.
Now, is the honorary Jew thing because of being in comedy? Because there's so many Jews in comedy, or is it a New York thing, or what is it?
I grew up in New York, but I also went to a Jewish sleepaway camp as a kid.
Okay.
4 or 5 years.
I didn't realize this, but like apparently sleepaway camp is a very like Jewish thing. I thought all kids went to sleepaway camps, but apparently no. It was just the Jewish parents were like, we got to get our fucking kid out of here for the summer.
Yeah.
And send them away. So Jewish summer camps are a thing. And Val, for some reason, why were you sent to a Jewish summer camp?
So my father was friends with the family that ran Camp Hatikva, which was a camp up in the Catskills. And I was friends with their kids, and their daughters used to go. So I wanted to go. I was like 8 years old, and my dad was like, all right, sure. And so the first year I went for like 3 weeks, and then afterwards I would go for like 6 weeks. And it was Orthodox, so we had to observe Shabbos on Fridays and Saturdays.
Were you like the Muksa goy, where they're always like, Val, turn on the lights?
Because when the counselors, like, you know, by the second year, like, you know, they were a little older, they would sneak out on Friday nights and they would take a shower, and they wanted to blow dry their hair. So they would have me plug in the hair dryer. And
Jonathan was just making a joke, but yes, the answer is yes.
I knew it was. That's such a Jew thing. If there's a non-Jew around, they gotta. We won't sin. They're already not part of us.
Right.
It won't matter for her on Yom Kippur.
Yeah, I was literally the only camper who wasn't Jewish at this camp.
And Did you feel like an outsider, or did you feel like you were included?
No, it was like, you know, when I first went, you know, I remember talking to my dad's friend, you know, whose daughter I was friends with, said, you know, if you go, you're going to have to abide by the rules. You know, we observe Shabbos, and I didn't know what that meant. And I was like, yeah, sure. And I, you know, it was just like, oh, this will be fun. You know, we'll go swimming every day. And then it was like, no, you can't go swimming every day. But I had to, if I was going, I had to commit to abiding by their rules as if I were Jewish.
Did everyone know? I mean, I know you said like the counselors knew that you weren't Jewish, but like, did all the rest of the campers know? Like, that's Val. She's a non-Jew.
They started to know because we had to do like a Hebrew class, and they would talk to, you know, the rabbi would, you know, talk to everyone about like, you know, like bar mitzvahs and bat mitzvahs, and, you know, you should start doing this and planning for it. And I was like, yeah, I'm not Jewish. And so it became a big thing. I remember like one year, a couple of students, you know, campers were like, well, what are you doing here? You know, why is she here? She should be not a Jew, blah, blah, blah. But the rabbi was like, he was a really great person. And so he just always included me. He was like, no, this is a good thing that she's learning about a different culture and a different religion. We should welcome this. And
that's awesome.
And so I loved it. You know, like I actually was probably closer with this rabbi than I probably was with any other like religious person in my life.
Really?
Yeah.
Why do you think that is? Do you think because he was just so open and accepting of you?
I think he was also just had a very open personality. I mean, I was born in a Christian, you know, Protestant family, but we weren't religious, and I didn't go to church on a regular basis. And what I do remember from church as a kid is that when you did ask questions that were questioning religion or God, it wasn't welcome.
Okay.
You know, it was just like shut up and just, you know, read the Bible, listen to what we're saying, and don't question it. Whereas I felt like when I went to camp, and if I had any questions about religion in general or God, it wasn't like, what's wrong with you? You know, why are you questioning this? It was, you know, like it was okay to question God. It was okay to question religion and not know. Like, I remember asking, well, which is the right religion?
And what did he say?
Church, it was like blasphemous, you know, but at camp, the rabbi was like, that's a good question. He said, you know, everyone thinks they have the right religion. He said, but he even said, I don't think there is one.
Wow. Do you think he responded to like you and your questions differently than he would have to like the Jewish campers because you like weren't part of the tribe?
I don't think so, because it wasn't like a one-on-one. It was like there were other kids, other Jewish kids there. He was he was a Holocaust survivor. And he had just like a very open, like anything could happen. I don't know what's right or wrong. This is what works for me.
Cool.
Was his approach to things.
Wow, that's such a great attitude. And I love it how, like, you wanted to, I feel like a lot of people, like, they see Jews growing up and they're like, who are these people? What is it? But you, like, wanted to be included. You, like, wanted to be a part of it. You're like, I like what these Jews got going on.
Well, when you first, when you go, it's like, it was all so foreign and different to me. And I was like, I didn't know what anything meant. Like you had to do prayers, and I didn't know what like bowing meant. And I was like,
yeah, I was thinking about that. What did you do? Like, because it was Orthodox camp, so obviously they had a prayer probably 3 times a day.
Yeah, we would do prayers like before meals and especially during Shabbos. And I remember asking my friend Allison, we were the same age, and I was like, how do you know when to bow? And she said, I don't. I just do what, the person in front of me.
That's the way to do it.
So that's exactly what I did. I was just like, all right. And when the person in front of me bowed, I would like bow like 2 seconds later.
It's like when you're at a sporting event and they do the wave, who knows who started it, we're just doing it.
Right.
Did you ever read like the English of the prayers, or did you have any interest in that?
I remember I had to have like a prayer book, before, it was like on your like list of things that you needed to bring with you.
That's pretty funny, actually. I always find that to be amusing. No, I just love that. Yeah, you get the list of things that you have to bring: bug spray and sunscreen, and swimming trunks, a bathing suit, and pillows, and a Torah.
Well, my father's friend was a cantor, so he had one that was like that I could say it phonetically. I didn't understand
the transliterations.
I was able to go along with like all the prayers.
Yeah.
So I didn't have to like mock it.
Did you ultimately get invited to a lot of bat mitzvahs after that?
Yes. Oh, yes. Yeah.
I mean, so that's got to be a perk.
Yeah, that was fun. I mean, I'm still really good friends with a lot of people that I met in camp too, to this day. And it's interesting to see like how some were from like very conservative families in Williamsburg, who are now like not conservative Jews anymore. Like they're not even really religious. And then I have one friend who she's now very conservative. Like very ultra conservative. And she didn't grow up in that kind of household. So it's interesting to see how like everyone like changed from like what their environment was like as a kid.
Right.
Okay. How many years did you go to the summer camp?
5.
5. Oh, wow. So that's like serious.
Yeah.
Were you like a huge hit with all the Jewish boys there?
Oh, I loved it. Yeah, it was like my first kiss was at camp.
Oh, Jew for the first kiss. Nice.
I was in like I would do the talent shows. It was like I had fun. It was kind of like, and like I said, I was like literally the only one who wasn't Jewish, other than the people who worked at the camp, like who worked behind, like in the kitchen or the custodial people, things like that. But like. It was like, oh, Valerie's back.
It's like they're giving the tour, and that's our one Gentile camper.
Yeah,
we're very progressive here at Camp Hatikva. So obviously, like when you're growing up in New York, you went to this Jewish camp, but you had friends that were not Jewish.
Yeah.
Did you get any like hate because you were like being part of this religion that you really weren't a part of, that they didn't know about?
Not really. I mean, I had friends who were Catholic or whatever, or, were Protestant, and just be like, why are you going to a Jewish camp? And, or their parents would hear about it. And I was like, well, I have friends who go there, and my dad knows the people that run the camp.
The price is right.
Yeah.
And,
and it was like, it was nice to get out of the city for a few weeks,
right.
And I think that's important. Like if you live in the city, especially as a kid, to go somewhere and just like be a kid.
I mean, I went to summer camp. My camp was not at all religious. It was mostly Jews there. It was mostly Jews from Long Island, I think, that were there.
Uh-huh.
I was like one of the few city guys.
Yeah.
That went there. And I went to a fair number of those bar and bat mitzvahs as well. But I don't think it was, we didn't do any kind of prayer. It was definitely not religious. at all.
Yeah, we couldn't on Shabbos, like you couldn't go swimming, you couldn't take a shower, you couldn't like all camp activities ceased.
I mean, I'm pretty sure they serve bacon at breakfast there, so I'm pretty, not.
Okay, yeah, that's very not Jewish. There was no bacon at my summer camp was more along the lines of Val's too.
Yeah.
I think I mentioned before they called my summer camp, it was a sports camp in a Torah environment.
Right.
That was like their catchphrase. So you grew up in New York City, so you've always kind of been surrounded by Jewish people and familiar with Jewish people. Jewish people were kind of like the norm.
Yeah. I mean, growing up, I had, friends who were Jewish. I also had friends who, were Muslim. So seeing people with different religious cultures and, what their beliefs are or what their traditions are. I always found that fascinating as a kid because I didn't have that. Like religion wasn't a big part of my upbringing. So right. I've always been kind of intrigued by people who have religion in their life, whether or not they like it or they don't. I find that very interesting. Like I'm kind of jealous of people who have religious traditions in their life especially with holidays, because I don't have that.
Well, the thing that Jonathan and I talk about on this show a lot is that we identify as Jewish mostly culturally. I mean, there are aspects of some of the dinners and a couple of the holidays, the high holy days that that we observe on a token basis, as a ceremonial basis. At least for me, I don't fast on Yom Kippur. I don't go to temple. But I find getting together with family and some of the values that those holidays represent are good moments of reflection about our humanity and our shared experiences as Jewish people. I think that that's kind of the way we approach Judaism for this podcast. Like it's, we don't necessarily believe in God. I think we're very anti-organized religion, but we're very pro, or at least we acknowledge the cultural touch points that Judaism has given us a shared experience within.
Yeah, I definitely identify with that. And I think that's what the appeal for me is that's, like I said, that sense of tradition, whether or not it's you believe in the religious aspect of it, but I like what it represents.
Yeah.
In that.
I like a good family where we're not arguing so much about the politics of particular religious, ritual. We're arguing over whose recipe for a kugel is better.
Have you ever thought of converting to Judaism, Val?
I never did because I don't really believe in an organized religion. I like being like, I like having friends who are ultra religious Jews or very religious Muslims. And I like if they invite me over for any kind of like holiday kind of gathering and I get to see like, oh, they really believe in this. And I admire that about them. I don't judge them, but for me, I don't like the idea of having like, oh, you have to abide by these rules and laws.
Right.
Have you noticed a big difference between Jewish men that you've dated and non-Jewish men?
I haven't dated a lot of Jewish men. Yeah, I mean, a lot of them I have found
that. Yes, that first kiss wasn't a good start for us.
That was it. I do find that, like, when I have gone out with Jewish men, a lot of them were like, yeah, but you're not Jewish, and that's an issue.
Ooh.
Okay.
So I have dated guys that were like, well, if you would convert, and these weren't even like ultra, like religious people, but it was like, something to my mom because if we had, like kids, blah, 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 you'd have to be Jewish. And I was like, no, it shouldn't be that.
No, absolutely. That's an ugly part. I
do find that like a lot of Jewish men I have dated, like do kind of go by the rules and laws of Judaism without really thinking about it.
Okay, they're just like an autopilot or something.
Yeah, it's just like they're not religious, but it's like, but I should marry or date a Jewish girl.
Okay.
I do find that comes up a lot. So
we like to keep it in the tribe.
I know.
Apparently, it's very important to some people. Yeah, that's like the only prerequisite that. Oh, you're Jewish. I'm Jewish. We could do it.
But can't you, like, even if you married someone who wasn't Jewish, can't you there is like a ceremony or something you can do to make the children Jewish.
I'm not very familiar with this, Val, but maybe you learned more at your Jewish summer camp than they taught me at mine.
I think there is like a ceremony or something that they can do that you can enroll them in like Hebrew school, and they can learn about the religion. And it's like I guess it's like the aspects of like converting to Judaism. So if the father is Jewish and the mother isn't Jewish, I believe there is a process where you can convert, I guess, the other half of the child.
I don't know. I feel like in New York, there's just so many different ways where you can end up having an erotic child. I think.
I mean, how would you feel about that if you were with somebody and they're like, okay, but now we want the kids to be like? To me, it sounds
that's the whole thing.
weird.
I wouldn't want to raise any. I don't think anyone should be raised with a religion. I think it should be something that you choose on your own.
Absolutely.
You know,
I totally agree. It's so weird that you're assigned it like at birth.
Yeah.
Like that's what we talk about this too. It's like almost like a sports team. Wherever you live and whatever your dad likes, that's what you have to like and do.
Right.
Yeah. I mean, I definitely was raised like you don't have to believe in this. Like it wasn't like do this or you'll die. It was kind of like, all right, you don't really know what you believe in. That's fine.
Well, I mean,
that's good. With me, it was like, do this or we'll kill you.
The biggest difference between Judaism and Catholicism is that we don't recruit, we don't make anybody, believe what we believe. We don't even really, ultra-Orthodox Jews don't even recognize converts as being really Jewish. So the only way to make more Jews is to literally make more Jews.
Literally have more, make them.
That's the only way to have more Jewish people is to, produce from the ground up. We control the means of production here.
Definitely do. You got to keep it very Jewish.
But so, that's one of the reasons why it's such a strong thing that, like, even though people might not adhere to the religious practices, the concept that if you don't keep passing down some of these traditions, that there won't be any Jews left.
Right. Well, isn't it like a really small percentage of the population are Jews?
Yeah, we're like, what is it, like 3%?
Yeah.
So not as much as people make it seem that we are. For the ones that are controlling everything, you think that there's more of us. Val, you've worked in the comedy business for a long time. When it comes to audience members, do you find a difference when like very religious Jews come to see a show opposed to just like non-Jewish people?
I always find it interesting when we do have we would occasionally have like very Orthodox Jews come to like the late shows.
Yeah.
And I know that like, oh wait, you're not supposed to be doing this. Like, I know like you're not supposed to be drinking. I know you're not supposed to be here. Like this is kind of like, like it's so rebellious.
Earmuffs for this joke, Jew. No.
I always find it very interesting because I think a lot of times they always think I am Jewish because of where I work. So right away they're always just like, it's like they treat me like I am a Jew. But I'm always very interested in like seeing like, like clearly you're not happy in the lifestyle that you're living. Like it's too constrictive. So why not just break free of it? Like you're breaking the rules anyway. So why not just break all of them?
Right. What is it about this comedy show they could come and like let loose or hear these ideas and these thoughts that they're not usually supposed to, where it's just like, why don't you just give into it instead of just being like, well, for 90 minutes, my mind is open.
And it's also so hypocritical. It's like, clearly you don't know who you are as a religious person. Like all this praying and what you claim you believe in, I don't think you really do believe in it. If you're breaking these rules and it's like, oh, you're going out at night and you're having alcohol, Well,
like, I mean, the Jews could have alcohol, right? There's nothing.
Some of them do, but like some of them, like if they're in mixed company, it's like, these are like ultra-Orthodox Jews.
Okay.
I mean, like
I've seen a bunch of them at some shows. It's like, what are you guys doing here?
Yeah. So I'm always kind of, surprised to see that they're coming with women late at night to a comedy show.
Have you noticed a lot of difference between Jewish comedians and comedians that aren't part of the tribe?
Not necessarily, because I do know Jewish comedians who don't really talk about being Jewish on stage. So I think it's really a matter of how big a part religion played in their life. So I don't really think you can, I don't know, like sum them all up of like, oh, all Jewish comedians are like this and non-Jewish.
Right.
I feel like comedians, like we're our own tribe in and of itself, like regardless of.
Oh yeah, for sure.
I mean, I do think that's true too, but I do think there's like sometimes there's like kind of cliques in comedy where there's kind of like a lot of African American comedians are very close.
Listen, there are definitely some comedians that are going to get booked on more temple shows than VA shows. There's definitely, in general, I think comedians we have formed our own kind of tribe, regardless of what tribe we already come from. Like there's a Venn diagram there.
Yeah.
It's a super tribe.
Yeah.
We took the funniest from each and we put them together.
Exactly.
Yeah, because I look at someone like Modi who plays a lot of like, religious events, very, that are heavily attended by Jews.
His persona is very Jewish.
So they're
His comedic identity.
expecting a certain type of comedy. Like he's going to do a lot of, inside jokes referencing Judaism that they will get.
Right.
And, for him to bring a comic who isn't Jewish would probably have a very hard time, because for a lot of those people, they wouldn't, maybe this is their first time seeing stand-up. So they're not going to understand, someone like, I don't know, like Phil Hanley, like they're not going to really identify with his comedy. So, I mean, like in that regard, I could see where there is a little bit of cliques in that sense, but I've also seen, Modi play for regular audiences, and it's not about like, oh, I'm a Jew.
Have you ever witnessed any anti-Semitism just growing up in the city?
I feel like honestly, I've witnessed it more at work. We do have upstairs from the cellar, we do have a Star of David in the window,
right.
It's stained
a glass window, yeah.
And one time this family, they were from out of town, they were like, what is that? Why do you have that up? Like called me over. They wanted to know specifically.
We want to speak to the manager.
Right, literally.
We do not want to eat under a Star of David.
And they were just curious. And I was like, well, was this a temple? I was like, no, I said, the family that owns the business. I said, they're Jewish. And, it's just when they were having all the stained glass, when they had that put up there, it's to represent, I guess, their heritage. And they were just like, but why would you put that? It's I was like, I said, I guess you have to ask, like it was just like such a bizarre thing. But I've had, like, I think a lot of people, when they see that, they assume that like, oh, people who work there must be Jewish. They sometimes look at the food we serve, like hummus, and they, they're like, oh, it's weird food, baba ganoush. Like, but I have had people, like, especially if I'm kicking people out or if I'm, telling people can't do this, you can't do that, especially during a show. I have had people call me a Nazi.
So we were talking about this earlier, how that's just the go-to for anybody.
That like right away, it was just like, and one time a guy called me a Nazi, and the wife, I think, got very uncomfortable. She was like, I think she's a Jew.
I wasn't offended at the Nazi, but I think she's a Jew part kind of.
Like, I think she's a Jew. I think she's a Jew part. Because it is an offensive thing to be called. And it was just kind of like, oh my God. And they were not from New York. They were like from God knows where, but definitely not from the tri-state area. So the idea of like, oh my God, they probably call a lot of people a Nazi, not thinking that like, yeah, it's very offensive.
Yeah, Nazis kind of evolved, from what it really was to just kind of been like anything. Oh, you're being a Nazi right now. You're a Nazi.
Enforce any kind of rule or regulation, you're a Nazi. Twitter is a Nazi, for kicking Trump off.
Right. We were talking about this earlier. I mean, I don't think so at all, but
I mean, it's a slippery slope from laughing at the soup Nazi to where we are now.
Exactly.
Right?
Because we did kind of embrace it in a funny way. And that's what happens when you do that with certain words and, especially derogatory terms. Like it's either bad or it's not bad.
Oh, that's such an interesting point that you bring up, Val. And I wonder if, Larry David and Seinfeld, if they have thought about how using that term, the soup Nazi, has kind of diminished how horrible of a term that is and the pain that has caused so many people and made it a little more easy for people just to throw out in jest.
Yeah, I definitely think so. I mean, that came out in the 90s where everything was kind of like not as bad, or we were living more under a rock about things that were really going on in the world. So to say things like, oh, he's a soup Nazi, that's funny, and then it was so exaggerated too, that character. But I don't think that was their intent. I don't know.
Based on a real guy. There was not,
Yeah, I mean, I think if they had the opportunity to go back in time to get rid of this will be the punchline, soup Nazi, I don't know that they should not say that, because it did work, but thinking about it now, it's yeah, I mean, I never really used the word Nazi as oh, you're a Nazi, ever.
No, me neither. It's not my go-to, personally.
Yeah.
But I don't think it is a Jewish thing. I think it's the non-Jews that more use the term Nazi.
Definitely, for sure.
Right. As well, especially the ones I think that when they use it so often, they don't understand the gravity of using such a term. And I think, as Jews, we don't throw it around as cavalierly because real Nazis are a fucking problem.
Especially if you've ever met someone who survived being in Nazi camp. It's not something you would ever say or take lightly. So I think, because like I said, at Jewish camp, the rabbi was a Holocaust survivor. So I think knowing someone like that who survived something like that really does make an impact on you. So I think you realize this isn't just a historical thing that's not relevant to you. It's no, I knew someone who almost died because of Nazis.
Right.
Who lost
Did he
their
tell
family.
you a lot of stories about his experiences in the camps?
He didn't really tell too many stories. He did talk about how he lost a lot of family. He lost his parents and moved to Israel, was able to go to Israel and then came to New York. He was really, really young when he survived the camp. He was I think he got out when he was 11 or 12. So he was a child. But he would talk about more of how that just reinforced his faith in not just religion, but in humanity. Because he said of all the good that came to him after everything.
It's amazing how people that have gone through such horrors like that could have such incredible perspective on the world. And so many of us take so much for granted and are spoiled little
the happiest person always. He was never in a bad way or in a bad mood. He was always very very present and always thankful and very happy. So, I think that's why I would never think to use the word Nazi as I don't know, in a venomous way to hurt someone, because no, that really is a thing.
Yeah. Having been around so much Judaism, do you have a favorite Jewish holiday that's stuck with you? Are there any of the holidays that you have enjoyed being a part of?
I actually do like Hanukkah, because I had, one of my friends from camp, his family always had a big Hanukkah party. So every year I would go to their apartment, and it was this on the Upper West Side, and it was a big, party, and his father would always make latkes, and he taught me how to make them. And it was and going to these parties, it was walking into a Woody Allen type movie atmosphere, because it was people.
Because there were young girls everywhere. No.
No, exactly. No, but it's people from all over, different walks of life, and not everybody there was Jewish. And
right.
There was very intelligent people over here, very artistic people over here. So it was I liked going there, and that for me was always a lot of fun. And it's so funny, this past Hanukkah, a friend of mine couldn't go home to be with his family because of COVID. And he was he goes, I really miss having latkes, at Hanukkah. And I was I know how to make latkes. So my friend came over and we did Hanukkah together, and I made latkes for him.
Oh, that's awesome.
Nice.
Well, I guess that's a good segue into what's your favorite Jewish food?
I like to make latkes.
Is it latkes?
Do you know what the secret ingredient is to a perfect homemade latke? It's like an old wives' tale kind of thing, but it's a single drop of blood that gets in there inadvertently when you cut yourself scraping the potatoes.
When you're shredding them, yes. Yeah. I would say for sure that is it.
It's usually from the knuckle.
Yeah.
Okay, so wow, I love it. Hanukkah's your favorite Jewish holiday. Latkes are your favorite Jewish food. Who's your favorite Jew of all time? It could be fictional, biblical, in real life, of someone you met.
And probably the Rabbi Horowitz. Because he was, like I said, he was always very welcoming to me. But also, I had never met a Holocaust survivor, and then he was, like I said, always very welcoming. And for a religious leader, he was definitely the friendliest in the sense of you could have a conversation with him. I felt like in a Protestant church, you can't really ask questions and be like, hey, what does that mean? They're not really into that.
Right. Just shut up and do it.
Exactly.
Was there any lesson or anything he said that you recall that really resonated with you?
I think it was just more of the way he treated me and made me feel okay to question things. That was a big thing for me, that it was okay to question religion, that it's okay to have doubts about it, to doubt God, to not know. And it was okay, and it's okay to live your whole life that way. That if you never find religion, that's okay. But it's more about who you are as an individual.
I mean, I think that's a beautiful lesson. I think that's totally true. But it's so weird because I was a Jew and I feel like I had a totally different experience where I wasn't allowed to question things. Where they were like, shut up, you're Jewish. Just, they kind of were like, we're saying that you're religious leaders, but I feel like he was more open to you because you weren't necessarily Jewish, that a better way to bring you into, all the goodness of Judaism was to have that open heart, opposed to if maybe a Jewish person would be like, that's what we do.
I think, maybe because of what he survived and realizing maybe if we get to know one another and be more open and welcoming of people, there won't be so much, there won't be problems between us, I think that was, I never really asked him that, but when I think back to him, I think that that's probably what he was going for, that maybe, in Germany, in Poland, years ago, if people had just communicated with one another and not just be like, oh my God, they're weird, they're Jewish.
Right.
Or, put the blame on them because they don't do things like us. So I think that definitely was probably why he was the way he was.
Well, Val, we're so glad that you came on the show today. I'm so happy to know you. There's so many bad people in comedy. It always makes me so happy when to see and to talk and to know someone that's an awesome fucking person, a positive force in comedy. And I feel like that's what you've always been, at least for me.
Well, thank you for having me. This was fun.
Thanks for coming on the show, Val. When things get back to normal, definitely go check out the Comedy Cellar and say hi to Val when you're there.
All right. Thank you.
Bye, Val.
Yeah, thanks, Val.
Huge thank you to Valerie Scott for coming on the show. We're so thrilled to know her, to have her as a friend, and to have her to be part of the comedy community in New York. Hey, if you didn't listen to what I said before, you should listen now and subscribe to our Patreon. It's all Jordan wants for his birthday. We're not going to tell you how old he is, but he doesn't have a lot of time left. You can follow me across all social media at Jonathan Randall. You can cash at me or Venmo me too at Jonathan Randall.
Listen, I'm pretty sure I have plenty of time left.
We got some great episodes coming up for our next 2 episodes before we reach 100 with some amazing guests. We want to thank everybody who's been on the journey with us thus far, and we have a lot of more great things coming in 2021.
Yeah, guys, thanks for supporting us, and we'll be here next time. L'chaim.